welcome to another Cheeky Girl Creations video. So today is another Shawn Petite's Creative Team video, and today I'm going to create bookmarks. So this cardstock had some leftover paint from when I was doing paint pouring. So the leftover paint was just poured onto it, and I primed it with some clear chalk primer so that I can create on it. So I'm going in with some different papers, some deco papers. Most of these papers, like what I'm tearing up now, is from packaging from my subscription boxes. And I'll also be using some tissue paper, and I'll be sticking everything down using PVA glue. And I'm going in first and sticking everything down with the palette knife, like the papers and stuff. And I've just picked all sorts of different colors. I wasn't really sure if I was going to pick a color scheme yet. I did know I just wanted some very colorful bookmarks. So I'm sticking all of those down. And now I'm going to go in with some tissue paper, and when I'm sticking down tissue paper, I tend to use a brush. The palette knife is a bit too hard on it, so it tends to tear instead of just stick down. So that is some silver tissue paper, and I'm going to go in with some book paper as well. I just wanted to create a lot of texture as well as some initial color for the background. So I'm sticking just a little bit of book paper down in a few areas, and I'm also going to go in with some plain strips. That's from the side of the pages. I always keep my plain strips separate because I use the plain strips for different things. And I thought that was it, but actually I thought I would add a little bit more color. So I'm going in with some green, that kind of tealy blue, as well as some purple and gold tissue paper. And what I really love about tissue paper is it's slightly opaque or translucent, so you get to see all the colors and patterns underneath it, except from the gold and the silver. They're more opaque, so you can't really see through them, but the colored ones you can see through nicely. So the more layers you add, the nicer it looks. And once I've stuck the rest of that down, I'm going to dry that with my heat gun, and I'm now going to pick out the stencils I want to use. And I use most of the stencils, mostly the mark making ones and some of the flower ones, and all of those will be linked. I'll link Shawn's blog post where I've written what I've used down below so that you can see all those stencils, the name of the stencils. So first I'm spraying through this stencil, I think that one's called Words, with my DIY sprays. And you can see they're not showing up a lot, but it is just adding the first layer of color and texture. And I'm just going to dab some of that off with a scrap piece of paper. And I felt that it was looking a bit dark and murky, so I'm just going over very quickly with brayer and some white paint just to kind of push back that first layer and lighten up some of that color. And once I've given that a dry with the heat gun, now I can go in with some acrylic paint. So I've just picked a few colors first. I will go in with a lot of colors. This will be a very multicolored bookmarks. And first I'm spreading some paint onto that onto the cardstock, and I'm going to wipe away the paint through the stencil. And again, I'm using that words one. I was planning to add some phrases or something to the bookmarks when it was finished, so I thought it would be interesting to have a layer of illegible words in the background before I added the phrases and stuff after everything was dry. So I went in with some stenciling. I stenciled some of those hearts with some white. And when I tried to pick up the color, like I'm doing again now with the blue, it didn't work that well, but I thought I would try again with the blue. It worked a bit better. This technique does work better with baby wipes, but I don't have any, so I was just using a damp paper towel. But that's fine. It was just to add texture and stuff, so it was all good. And I'm also stenciling some white through the stencil again, just to lighten things up a little bit, and then I'll give that a dry. And now I'm going to go in, I think this one is called Garden or something, and I sprayed some black ink sprays through that, and any of the leftover ink on the stencil I've just kind of dripped onto the page, and I'm going to knock the paper so it creates some really yummy drips. And I dried that thoroughly, so now it's time for the main stenciling. Most of this is stenciling really. I had lots of fun using all these stencils. I'm going in with some lemon yellow with these flowers. I think it's called sketch flowers, and I'm using all of the flowers, but I just keep on twisting and turning them so it doesn't look the same and doesn't look too like planned. It looks a bit more organic in the kind of pattern. And once I've done that, I can go on to the next stencil. And this stage, I didn't dry it as much like between layers. I wasn't too worried about it because they were like pretty much thin layers of paint. So I didn't bother to like dry it between layers. And now I'm using this one. This is like one of the background kind of stencils. I like these like the most because there's all sorts of different patterns you can get from one stencil. And every now and again, like if I feel I wanted to add more color but not more like stencil marks, I just kind of wipe the makeup sponge in a few areas just to add a bit more color. So that was Viridian, by the way, that went in the zigzags, and this is cadmium orange hue, I believe. And I really like that pattern. That looks really cool. And now some purple. And like the makeup sponge I'm using, I didn't really clean like between. So when I first stenciled the purple, it didn't come out very purple. It came out more looking a bit like Viridian. So I went in and added some more purple, like with a different stencil and a different makeup sponge. And now I'm adding some numbers with some light yellow green. I really like this green, and it's such a nice light color that it helps to brighten up the background. And you can see like the more and more layers I add, the more depth there is to the background. I'm adding some more of that excess paint around just to kind of brighten things up. And then like through different like stencil images, you can see like the previous stencil images, so it just looks really cool. And now I'm going to add some white. This is like one of Shawn's new stencils. I absolutely love this one. It's so cool, especially those teardrops and like the kind of leopardy print one. So I'm adding the white through, and that's just helping to, one, brighten up the cardstock as well as push some of that color back. Also just kind of brings everything together so it looks a little bit more like cohesive and everything, and it works better. And again, I'm using that words one. I'm stenciling the hearts and the flowers, and I brought in an almond color for those flowers, which is kind of like a creamy kind of off-white color. And I'm nearing the end of making the background. I think that is it. Oh, almost. Of course, as many of you may know, I love gold and I quite like silver as well. So I'm adding some silver using that dream catcher stencil. On the big dream catcher circle, I've used the silver, and on the smaller one, I'm using gold. And that'll just add some really nice shine. So you can't see it like really too well, but when you look close, you'll be able to see those little shiny details. And then I add any excess that I had on my sponge around the page. So I've let that dry really well. And now I'm just going to kind of trim off some of those like messy edges so I can cut them into bookmarks. And I cut it in 5 centimeters. And the cardstock was 29 centimeters long though. So when I get to the point where the cardstock is 9 centimeters wide, I'll cut it in at 4.5 centimeters. Yeah. So that they wouldn't be like too small if I cut it at like 4. But like the 5 centimeter ones were my favorite size. So now I'm going to edge all the bookmarks with my StazOn ink pad. That just helps to ground it. And I'll also corner punch the edges so that it has a really nice round edge. And you'll notice that one of them I didn't corner punch because I'm not going to like sell these bookmarks, because if I were going to sell these bookmarks, I would have matted it with some like white or black cardstock, because the back was a bit dirty with like paint and stuff. But I was just going to gift these and keep one of them for myself, so it didn't matter too much what the back looked like. But if I were going to sell it, I would back it with something. So the one that I didn't corner punch, my sister wanted it with pointy corners. So even though I liked the rounded corners better, I thought I might as well just let her have a pointy cornered bookmark. So now I'm stenciling a few words that I wanted to add to the bookmark. I've stenciled treasure, journey, and joy. And I used some black, as you can see, and I've just stenciled onto some like scrap piece of paper. And I'm just filling in like the U with some black paint and the paintbrush, so it just looks all uniformed. And now I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to leave a very small border around the word. so I can add it to the bookmark, because that whiteboard will help it to stand out. And now when I'm putting it on, and you'll see that plans change because I didn't really like how it looked. So I thought maybe if I corner punched it, and that looked better, but it just was too big for the bookmark. So I do add the joy though, because the joy was just the right size. So that was perfect, but the treasure and the journey was just too long. So instead I did want like treasure and journey on my bookmark. So you can see I'm still playing around with that. So I'm just going to write treasure the journey with a Sharpie pen on another scrap piece of paper, and stick that down, and you'll see once I do that, it'll just look a lot better on the bookmark. Yeah, so sometimes, plans change. It's a shame that I wasn't able to use like the stenciled words, but I wrote in print so it'll kind of look like that. And I made the letters quite thick so they stand out nicely. And a lot of the stuff I'm using are like permanent, like the Sharpie and the Stays On ink pad, but I will be laminating these bookmarks. So it doesn't really matter. So if you want to make bookmarks with like watercolor or anything that's still water soluble and won't dry permanent, just laminate it so that you don't have to worry about water hitting it. So even though everything is permanent on there, I don't have to worry about water hitting it, which is really good. I'm just adding some gold to the edges of those phrases, just to help them blend in a little bit because the white was looking a bit stark. And now I'm just going to add some highlights using my Uniball Signo pen. And I'll also circle the phrases with the Sharpie marker, just to like kind of add a nice doodled detail. And before I do that, I'm going to add some marks and doodles to the bookmarks. They looked nice, but I thought I might as well just add some little details here and there. It also helps to like brighten up the bookmark as well, which is really nice. So I'm both like adding marks like around that the joy. I put dashes, but I'm also circling some of those stenciled images, which will help some of them stand out more than others. And that again just adds like a really nice layer. And I really enjoyed making these bookmarks. And if you're wondering, like you can use the same technique to make, say, like card fronts. I've done that before where I've taken like scrap pieces of paper that I didn't really like what I did, but then I added some like stenciled images. I cut them down, and then I can stick them onto like blank card fronts. And that just creates some like really nice fun artsy cards. You can make postcards, you can make tags like gift tags and stuff. So you can use this technique for anything. So you just grab a piece of cardstock or like paper or anything that's strong enough to take that you didn't really like what you did before. Add some stenciling and some doodles like I have, and that will just create something really nice, especially when you cut it down into like smaller shapes. Things tend to look nicer when they're cut down sometimes, especially if you don't like it on a big background. And I'm sorry that sometimes I went a bit out of frame. I zoomed in so you guys can see what I was doing, but then I got really into it, so sometimes I was out of frame. But you'll see all like the close-ups and stuff in the photos at the end of the video, so no worries. And this Uniball Signo pen, I absolutely love it. This is like the best white like gel pen that I've ever used. So you can also use like a white paint pen as well, so that'll also be really strong. So I finished adding those doodles, and now I'm going to go around the phrases, and I've done it quite messily as well, just to make it look a bit more interesting. And that just helps those phrases pop out perfectly. And then once I've done that, I'm going to go in and write made by Nathifa Simon, aka Cheeky Girl Creations. So even though I'm not selling it, I always like to sign whatever I've created. So that's how I tend to do the bookmarks. But on the ones I sell, I have like a sticker that I stick on that has like all that information on it. So now for the laminating, I've taken one of my laminating pouches, I think you call them, and I'm going to fit like 4 bookmarks in one because I did want quite a wide border of laminate around the bookmark so that I know it's nice and sealed. And I've laminated that off camera. The extension cord I would normally use to be able to like film on the table is broken or something. I don't know, there's something wrong with it. So I just did that off camera, but if you know how to laminate, then it's all good. And now I'm going to cut it down using my guillotine. I'm leaving, I would say, about 1/2 centimeter border, and I'll also corner punch the edges of the ones that have rounded corners, so that especially with the laminate, one, it'll look better with rounded corners since the bookmark itself is rounded, but laminate can be quite sharp on cut corners, so rounding it is quite nice. And that one, I had a bit of a mistake. The laminate kind of like crunched it up, so I had to like yank it out, so it's all wrinkled, but it doesn't look too bad. And once I cut it out, I did go through the laminator quite a few times to try to smoothen it out, and you'll see in photos how it'll look. So that's pretty much it. So I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Subscribe to Shawn's channel and like her video as well, and check out all the other creative team members. We all have some lovely creations. And if you're watching on my channel and you've been inspired, please do join my Facebook group. You can tag me on Instagram to share what creations you've made. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you join me again for another arty video. Bye.